Welcome back, Time Crunch fans. I'm your host, Coach Adam Pulford. Mountain bikes are my favorite kind of bikes, and mountain bike stage racing is my favorite kind of racing. So when I saw a question about how to train for the Breck Epic submitted by you, our audience, I selfishly put that one to the top of the list. I'll get back to the original question here in a minute, but as I was drafting up my outline and talking points for this episode, I got even more excited because I realized I should just do a podcast with my good friend, local Summit County legend, owner, operator, / vibe curator of the Breck Epic, Mike McCormack. Mike, welcome to the show.
Wow, that's quite an intro. Thanks for having me. Legend's doing some heavy lifting there.
Hey man, when you do all the heavy lifting at altitude like you have, curating the vibes like you have up there, you get legendary status.
Well, 17 years in, you at least get staying power credit, for sticking around that long. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. So for our audience who may not know you, such as I, tell us more about yourself. Tell us we'll get into what Breck Epic is, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm like everyone else, kids, dogs, mortgage, struggle for fitness and self-care and professional productivity. A little bit of a attention deficit / impulse control problem, which is, I like to think of it as a strength, not a weakness, that can be mitigated with list taking and the slow, desperately slow creep of maturity. I'm a bike industry veteran. I've worked in bike shops since I was 15, which is 40 years ago, and come up through the marketing ranks, public relations, strategy, branding, and 18 years ago, we started planning for the first Breck Epic, inspired by an article that Mike Ferrantino wrote about his experience at the Trans Rockies. The general gist of which was ripping his Achilles in half, walking up steep powerline climbs in a brand new pair of CDs. And I thought to myself in the basement of Clint's coffee shop on Main Street in Breck, and Josh Tostado, endurance legend, wasn't too far away at the time. He remembers this. It's like, we could do that here, and you could sleep in your own bed. And so I was working for Yeti at the time, and that idea was sort of born. 6 big loops that each started and ended in downtown Breck. And that was how the Breck Epic was born.
I did not know it started with that background of the Trans Rockies as the kind of the seed that was planted. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aaron McConnell. And then after that, Dean and Dre at BC Bike Race, who've I think we all sort of inspire. It's kind of like a Trek and Specialized and SRAM and Shimano. Like it's vital that those other pieces are out there to keep our own competitive fires lit and to help us not be derivative of them or reductive in any way, but our own thing. And like all those events have matured into their own thing. Like they're different things for different people. And I like those guys. They're good at what they do. The work is hard. I have a lot of respect for what they do. But yeah, we were inspired by what Aaron was doing, and thought that we could put our own kind of unique spin on it, which involved sort of less travel, less portage, which isn't better or worse, just different.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a cloverleaf. That's us.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to get into that because those points that you mentioned are super important when it comes to how to prepare for this thing. But let's read the original question because that'll cue us up for our talking points so we can stay on topic here for our time crunched athletes and make sure we don't go rabbit hole in too deep here. So
you got the wrong guy.
Oh man.
But go ahead.
When I reached out to Mike, I was like, this ain't going to be 30 minutes. But we'll do our best here, folks.
Okay, me too.
Right. Here's the original question.
I'm gonna try hard. Yeah.
Original question. Hi, Adam. I enjoy listening to your podcast very much. My question is actually 2. I'm registered for the Breck Epic next year, and I'm wondering what sort of training tips you have for prepping for a mountain bike stage race. I also live at sea level in Maine, and I wonder if you have any tips for dealing with the altitude. I turn 40 next year, so this is a gift to myself. before I start the next 40 years of life. Thanks so much, Indira from Freeport, Maine. How cool is that? That's a great gift.
Dude, that's super cool. I love reading all of that, and there's so many things to unpack in her question, and different permutations of what the answer might be.
I'd say first, let's go back to like what the Breck Epic is, because it's super important. It's at altitude, so people know that. What is the starting? What is the altitude of Breckenridge, by the way?
The altitude of Breck is 9,600 feet.
Okay, so we'll let that one marinate for a second, but just so everybody knows, it's very high altitude. Okay.
Yep.
That being said, the cloverleaf concept, right? So what I love about Breck Epic, and this is what I tell all my athletes when they're looking for a stage race, I go, it is the best because you stay at some ski lodge, you ride your bike down to the start. There's, I don't know, bacon and whiskey already there, and music and all the vibes that you want. Then you race your bike, ride your bike, whatever your pace is, for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, backcountry mountain biking, and then you come back to Breckenridge. You got a whole platter of the most delicious food you could want. You scarf it down at the finish line. Then you pedal your way back to the ski condo, throw your bike to the side, take a shower, take a nap, and then you go to the pre-race meeting for the next day. And you rinse and repeat over and over. I think that's beautiful, Mike. However you came up with that concept for not portaging, not transferring, not going over God's green earth, which you could in Colorado, but it's all in Breckenridge. Brilliant. How did you arrive to that concept?
Well, we started the Firecracker in, I think, 2000. And it was a 50-mile race, and people told us, in 2000, you're crazy. Nobody wants to race 50 miles. And we're like, why don't we see? And they said, nobody wants to ride the bikes on the 4th of July. And we're like, why don't we see? But like that sort of implied challenge was, could we make it work? Which is, powerfully motivating. All those people who say that it can't be done is puts a chip on your shoulder, watch this, right? And anyone in charge of a company or an event also has that, this thing is not going to go down. I will work harder. I will sleep less. I will out hustle anyone to make sure, because my name's on it, and I want people to have a good time. You don't want people to come to your house and not have the beer they like in the fridge. And that's what the Epic is. It's inviting people to our community and treating them like guests in our house. Like, we want you to come ride your bike to see our secret stashes. And we're lucky enough to have this magnificent trail network that's interconnected, and the width and breadth is just spectacular. There's nothing like it in terms of size and connectivity in the world. And it's sort of a legacy item of turn of the century, environmentally invasive mining practices. Like, that's the backbone of the trail network. Getting to hard places because that's where precious metals were. But the community has done an amazing job of cultivating that over the past 40 years. And the care and feeding of that trail network is the joint effort of sort of the tri-headed open space cabal of, Breckenridge Open Space, Summit County Open Space, and the Forest Service. And it is the gold standard for intergovernmental collaboration. Mm-hmm. We have a cloverleaf format because we can. We aren't smart enough to figure most things out. We've been lucky more than smart. And we're lucky to have had, a spark of an idea that combine the ingredients in our particular cupboard in a new way, and to combine them at the right time when big backcountry races were kind of disappearing and still are. Like, there's not a ton in mountain biking. No. And we're certainly not the prettiest girl to dance in the bike industry. That's gravel, right? Which is great. Gravel has reinvigorated cycling. But this is a different experience. And the terrain, the altitude, it's not technical. You've ridden it. There are 1 or 2 spots, but it's difficult. And the difficulty, part of which is the altitude, really kind of waves the recreationalists to the side. Mm-hmm. You need to be fit when you get here, but you don't need to be an elite athlete. You need to put in your miles. Yep. And I think that selectivity Uh, Everyone who's here is committed. This is a life experience, and like you don't luck your way to the finish line. You got to earn it. And there are people who say it's the hardest thing they've ever done. I'm not sure if I buy that, but it's hard enough. It's an off-road monument. It's one of off-road cycling's 7 summits. It's like there's a handful of them, and we're lucky enough to be one of them. And we're not the best at a million different things, but not being the best is really motivating. I want to make better hats than chemo. he thinks exactly the same. So
Yeah, man.
I have spent years like trying to compete at different levels before finally arriving at we just need to be the best us. We need to make sure that you, Adam, you and Dira, when you arrive, have a great time. And so sorry, closing the circle here, and I'm sidebarring myself into oblivion. We started the firecracker with the very basic premise of we're going to do everything humanly possible so that all you need to do, Indira, is bring your bike. We're going to worry about everything else. Yep. Everything you need is like going to a great restaurant. It's there waiting for you. Your needs have been anticipated and met. Come ride your bike 30 or 40 miles a day, and that's it. Recover, rest, come back the next day, rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So that last part, super important in my opinion, because man, when you go bike racing, there's enough anxiety, there's enough worry, there's enough logistics going on. Where when I worked as a team director, my job, my task, my mission was to minimize the stress for the rider as much as possible, so they can just focus on the race. Mm-hmm. And that's what Mike does as a race director. And every time you show up, like the hospitality shines through, like it's people forward. But again, it comes back to how he sets up the race. And in that way, and how I described it, like you've got a lot of things taken care of for you. However, you start racing your bike at 9,500 feet. You climb your face off. Yeah. And it's super hard, especially for sea level, man. I've ridden and raced Breck Epic 3 times. I've done the 3-day, I've done the 6-day, I did the 6-day co-ed duo.
Wow, yeah.
And I keep coming back for more. I mean, it's silly fun. And one thing I will say is, like you said, it's not overly technical, and I agree with you on that. But that's also like really dependent on your interpretation of technical. Because some people, they'll go to Breck and be like, "Whoa, what? What is going on here?" Right? I rode my gravel bike and my road bike, and you didn't say it was technical, and oh my gosh. So for those people who don't ride their mountain bike on a regular basis, my recommendation is ride your mountain bike on a regular basis on single track with rocks, with roots, with all the things, right? And then for those like super rowdy single track people, I probably climb more. I do more fitness riding because you're going to need it up there.
Yeah, it's like going on a ride with a Moab local who's lived there for 20 years. Oh, it's an easy ride. It's an outback, exactly. And you just realize that their frame of reference is alien compared to yours, like someone who lives on the North Shore. Mm-hmm. But you're right, get used to the geometry of your bike, ride single track. The climbs are long, so are the descents. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that surprises a lot of people from the East Coast is the speed of the descents. Yeah, sure. You get cooking, and for miles at a crack. Mm-hmm. And we learned that early on, that some East Coasters who were really, really good at technical riding were freaked out about how fast they were going. Not that it's an insurmountable skill, but because it's just a new experience. Yeah. So getting comfortable on your bike, like this, it's and there are several components. Like there's fitness, right? Like that's an obvious one for everyone. Nutrition, gut health is a big part of this. Recovery, like there's so many aspects. And at 9,600 feet, the fact that it feels like you're breathing through a straw, it's hard not to take that personally. That the physical universe we occupy is conspiring against you. Yeah. But it's conspiring against everyone equally. And it's tough not to feel it personally because you're the one trying to breathe. Yeah. But everyone around you is trying to do the same thing. And so that is the world telling you, slow down, acclimatize, figure out where your thresholds are, and don't go there on day one. You talked about anxiety in the start or leading up to a race, and like that's the good part, right? The bus is coming. The bus is coming.
Sure.
You're so jacked up in the corral in stage one, and like that's why like we've had a couple of rain shortened courses over the past 10 years on stage one, weirdly, and it was important to get those fields off and get 12 to 17 miles in their legs just to burn off that top layer of jet fuel and to get past that anxiety stage. There's a lot of pieces to this. Fitness is one. Being on your bike is one. Like getting used to longer days, longer climbs. And then like the other pieces are your bridging components. Like if you can string together a minor symphony or 3-chord power rock of let the chords hang together of fitness, recovery, nutrition. You're gonna have a great time. And you're going to go home with a belt buckle, and for 6 days of your life, you will have lived. You will have visited some of the continent's greatest backcountry cathedrals. Like that's what you get, and you're going to be there with 400 other people who are pulling for you. They want to see you succeed. All races are like that. Leadville's like that. Steamboat's like that. It's family. At their best, they're like that. And we are too.
Yeah, you get that family vibe going. And that's what's, in my opinion, the spirit of mountain bike is really the spirit of bikes, because everybody's trying to steal our stuff, man. But that's it. I mean...
the spirit of... It's like a joke in our camp. Like,
why didn't you wear your t-shirt, your spirit t-shirt?
Oh my gosh. We can't go more than like 60 minutes before someone just sort of spouts off, Spirit of Epic! Right? And they start giggling. Just ride your bike. We don't need the spirit of anything.
I wanted to throw it in there because it's so popular right now. But all spirits aside, getting back to the original question, getting super fit, right? We've talked about that. Wildly important. And I'll bring in some like boring points of some training, but it's not going to be my normal percentages of FTP and 8-week builds and all this kind of stuff. I've regurgitated so much of that on other podcasts. This one's going to be a little bit more abstract. So Indira, bear with me on that one. But that time on the bike, that time on the mountain bike, and perhaps if you rank yourself as like, am I strong, medium, or weak skill wise on the mountain bike? I would say rank yourself. If you're weak, maybe you find like a mountain bike skill instructor, so you shore that up. So it's not a weakness come race day. Anytime that you invest in skills, it will carry you on for the next 40 years of your life, Indira. Like,
right.
That's skill riding. You talk about anxiety. You talk about like moving fast through single track. Like people come to me and they're like, you know what? I don't race. I don't do this. So I don't have to go fast. I'm like, but you like going fast. And they're like, I do like going fast. Yeah. When you have the skill set and you have the confidence and you have the ability to go fast, it is fun. And when it's fun, man, life is rad. And that's why you're doing Breck Epic. That's why you're doing any race. Anybody listening to this, that is why you ride your bike. That is why you sign up for events. So put some effort, put some time, put some money into that skill aspect of it. Now, and I won't preach any more on that, but like, that's skill. So let's just check that one off. Mike, feel free to add anything to that.
I think that's one of the things that mountain biking gives you are those moments of flow, of being in the moment. And we see it with skiing, snowboarding, any sport where velocity is a component. And there's a great line here that I think my friend Jason Blevins wrote. He writes for the Colorado Sun right now, formerly Denver Post. Like, why do you like to ski fast? And his response was, why does a dog hang its head out the window? Right? And like going fast on a mountain bike is this convergence of grace and power and intent. And it's beautiful. And you're a moving piece of art, like not to overstate things. And, it's not a religion. But it's those moments that we're all seeking, just carving through a corner deliberately with purpose, with science, behind you. And the skill clinics, like you referenced, are, man, if you could take 1 second out of every corner, think about how much faster you'd be. And there are 7,000 corners in any day of the Breck Epic, right? And
7,024, I thought.
yeah. And like those are just also building blocks of confidence, knowing, oh man, I nailed it.
Yeah.
I love, it's, you get that in road biking and gravel, and the mountain biking delivers,
Yeah.
right? Trees, right? By your handlebar ends. It's just amazing that way.
Yeah. And to that point, like any podcaster can sit here and say skill instruction. Okay, cool. But like, I live in Maine. I live where there's not mountain bike trails. I looked up Freeport, by the way. Not a ton of mountain bike trails around you in Dura. So like you're going to have to get elsewhere, maybe to put some time on single track. I've been to Wyndham for a few World Cups. Got some rad tracks out there for sure. And then just north of you, but like talk to some friends, look for local trails where you can rip on the weekends, but you might have to drive. The other thing I was going to say is check out my podcast with CTS coach Josh Whitmore. It's all about mountain bike skill instructions. And you can go to the website PMBIA, and I'll put this in the landing page, but that's the best certification for a mountain bike skill instructor. And they're all over the world, all over the nation, a lot in Canada, some in the United States. Josh Whitmore is one of them. So I guess myself is as well. But you can book skill instructions on PMBIA.com, and you can find more information there. So quick plug for that organization, but I can't say enough about like refining skills. So I'll leave it there for now, Mike.
Yeah, get on your bike, ride some single track, use what you have. Like nothing here is going to surprise you in terms of technical terrain. So just get on what you can.
Yeah.
Bring fitness, bring a little bit of skills confidence, and then the other stuff is gut health, recovery, nutrition.
Totally. Yeah, you're not hucking gaps at Breck Epic, folks. Don't. But I'm just saying, anytime I can get somebody to think about their skill versus their FTP, I start with that first. But now let's talk about FTP, because first we talk about fitness. Okay, so fitness in the Training Peaks world, or any sort of gamification world of fitness, chronic training load or CTL, we kind of call that fitness. I would say Endura, like you want to build that to be kind of as high and stable as you can over the next, if you start now, right, build over the next 3-4 months. But I'd say from a timing standpoint, and this is where it gets a little like nerdy or coachy, is around mid-May. That's when you really want to start shifting more toward the zone 4 and 5. So that's like high threshold VO2 max, and you really want to start that big build of FTP for 8 to 10 weeks. The reason I say that is because the race is mid-August, Mike, 10 through 15. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So that's about 8 to 10 weeks out. And listen to some of my podcasts on extensive threshold development and intensive threshold development. I'll link to those as well. But you want to weave through that extensive and intensive threshold, then intensive and extensive VO2 max work. And all it is 3 to 4 weeks of build, recover, build, recover. And what you're doing is you're kind of zigging and zagging your FTP and your VO2 max up. So you're working on the biggest bang for your buck, which is the glycolytic energy system. That helps you climb more. That helps you be more resilient. That improves your durability. And when you get to Breck, when you get to altitude and long hill climbs, that's the energy system you need to maximize before you get there on race day. And there's a lot of fancy stuff that we can talk about, Mike, but like, am I right in doubling down on like hill climbability and threshold work for prepping for your race?
There's plenty of climbing, so it would be hard to say you're wrong. And the limiting factor is oxygen. Sea level athletes typically have a different type of musculature than a mountain athlete, and it's slight but significant. Like it's not like the HDE wells, the troglodytes and the whoever the people were that lived above ground. It's not those huge physical differences, but there are physiological differences in those athletes because of their training environments.
Yeah.
The limiting factor here is the oxygen.
Yep.
So you have big muscles that you're going to want to fire, and maybe not enough oxygen to be able to fire them consistently over long periods. So I don't have a technical understanding like yours. What I do know is that the advice we give people is pretty accurate on stage one. You're not going to win the race here, but right. You can lose it here.
Yep.
And so it's an exercise in finding out what your thresholds are in this environment and approaching them with a great amount of respect. To know that recovery here is harder. It's like being hungover when you're 50 as opposed to when you're 30. Like it's a different ball game. Which is why, 50-year-olds or 55-year-olds in my case, don't play the hangover game anymore. When you get here, you need to figure out how your body's going to work in this environment. And that involves a little bit of on-the-ground testing during stage 1, stage 2, figuring out how hard you can push and still survive. Most people who come here are fit enough. They may arrive in subsequent years with greater fitness because they want to do more, and it's really common for people to finish and, say, I'm never coming back. Right? And then 10 minutes later, they're like,
they're signing up.
I could have carved 7 minutes off here. And it's about, leaving everything on the field. And over a week, you have a lot of opportunities. So you have to know when to press, when not to press. And putting in that work, that threshold work and building up is a great way to hedge your bets and to arrive here ready to put on your best performance. Mm-hmm. And then also there's another overlay of, you make plans and the universe laughs at you. Yep. So get here. Don't arrive overconfident. Don't arrive with a really, really light wheel set, or tires without sidewall protection. Be fit, man. Fitness trumps a lot.
Yeah. And
then understand how to apply that judiciously, especially in stage 1 and 2, and figure out how your body's responding to here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so on the altitude side of things, as we just stitch the fitness to altitude, I will say there's no correlation between how you, I've seen people who are super fit perform poorly at altitude. I've seen people who are maybe not the most fit, but they perform better at altitude. So fitness does not equal you will go good at altitude. It's really about the pacing that Mike talked about. Typically, the less fit person will not be they won't be full of hubris to the point where they will go all out on day 1, right? And so that's when the altitude starts to really pull somebody down, is that high intensity on day 1. And then it's just real bad from there. So on the altitude side of things, my best advice is Indira or anybody doing Breck, if you can do an altitude camp, if you can get to Breckenridge, if you can go to Leadville, if you can get to even Colorado Springs, where I used to live for 10 years, and do 3 days of riding on the mountain bike, you'll learn. It's practice for your brain. There's not to get overly complicated, but there's a lot of flips and dials and triggers and things in your brain to help regulate the natural EPO production and oxygen signaling in your body. And so any exposure you have to altitude is really good. Native altitude, by the way, really good preparation for altitude races. I have not seen any altitude devices, such as breathing devices or anything that does that same signaling or gives really good benefit outside of an altitude tent. I'm not going to get into that either, because in Indira, I would not go the altitude tent route for an amateur bike racer, a weekend warrior. I don't think altitude tents are applicable or enjoyable. So let's not go there. But an altitude camp where you can maybe bring the family or just be good to yourself on your 40th birthday, whatever the case is, get there and put some time in, because it's going to help that pacing that Mike is talking about. Your perceived effort of 7 or 8 out of 10 at sea level may correspond with X power. When you go up to altitude, it's going to be X minus about 20%. but the perceived effort is still 7 or 8. And so you got to learn how to climb at that 7 or 8, especially when the power changes at altitude. Best way to do that, get up to Breck and do a little pre-ride.
Even if you just get here the day before and go out and, turn your pedals over and figure out how your legs are responding to some extended climbing. And then also understand, and this is more of an intellectual exercise, that the adrenaline coursing through your veins during stage 1 and kind of for the rest of the week, and it sort of ebbs as the week goes on, is dangerous. Not in a physical sense, but it gives your body an overstated confidence that at some point you're going to have to cash the check and make sure those funds are in the bank. And so, that's a really layered observation that people want to go fast on stage 1 because it feels good. And people also get out over their skis. It's like anything, going on a new bike ride, taking your whitewater raft down the river, approaching things with a healthy sense of respect, with confidence, but respect that doesn't sort of leak over into fear. Adam, this race is approachable. It has its own challenges. Altitude is at the top of the list. The fact that it's 6 days long, like it's mountain biking. Like there are some Jeep road connectors, but this is riding your bike on dirt. It's not. I mean, it requires a mountain biker's skill set. And it's like if you grew up in the Midwest and you took vacations to Colorado to ski in the winter. The day after you get back from Colorado, you are a different human being on your own ski hill because you have been put into situations that demand more of you. And this is one of those. You will be a better mountain biker when you arrive back home, wherever home is, because that's what this terrain and race and 6-day dynamic requires.
Yeah. Let's talk about that 6-day dynamic, because I think that is a beast in itself. And there's one thing that you said like 20 minutes ago, probably at some point, was like race, fuel, and recover. And there's no, like, stage racing is unique like that because you have to live for the next day. We talk about pacing, we talk about fueling, this kind of stuff. Then recover, get good sleep, and then do it over and over and over. That is an art, in my opinion. And every athlete should learn how to do that. A training camp or a facade training camp, a long weekend where you ride Endura, here is a good example. If you are a low mileage rider, go 4 hours on one day, 3 hours on the next, 3 hours on the next. Do it hill climbing on your mountain bike, put in some efforts, that kind of stuff, but like a mix of intensities, but 4-3-3. Start there. And then you can build from there. You can do like 5-4-3, 6-5-4. Okay. And what you're doing is you're giving your body these training impulses. You're forcing your body to go for a long period of time on your bike, come back, wash your bike, take care of your food, shower, take care of yourself, but getting durable at all the other things that's not even race related, so that you have the capacity to get to Mike's pre-race meeting for the next day, where they go over all the fanfare and all the important stuff that you need to know logistically for the next day, and you do a fantastic job of that. There's a lot that goes on, even though a race like this kind of takes care of a lot of it for you. You get really tired from all the other stuff. But do it in your training, like prep in those 3-day blocks, 4-day if you want to. It gets long for a time-crunched athlete, but the more little blocks like that of volume or even hard intervals, but to learn how to take care of yourself, that is a vital, artsy athlete thing that you need to do before any stage race.
So much in the realm of fitness. I think, you look at weight training, and the first thing that any weight training coach will tell you is the importance of recovery to allow your muscles to repair themselves. We look at like the data on Leadville. We have, anecdotally at least, like the overwhelming number of Leadville failures, for example, are nutrition related. People who just cratered. And getting yourself acclimated to long rides, how your body responds to certain nutritions. Like some stuff works for some people and it doesn't work for others. That's why we have an aid bag system. Like we have, for the past 15 or 16 years, Goo Energy products out on course. So Roctane, Recoverite, gels, chews. And Uriel Carlson is sort of our in-house nutrition performance specialist. She's raced with us. We have that great picture of her in a Superman hoodie handing out bacon on the top of Wheeler because she's also a coach. Her insight into nutrition at this altitude is amazing. Also, just a fantastic human. And, she's an ambassador for Juliana. But knowing how your body responds to food and being able to process it efficiently. And on day 4, you're not going to feel like eating. And you desperately need to eat. And eating becomes your job. It becomes a dull, joyless affair, but essential. And you need to, if the Goo Energy stuff works for you, we got a ton of it. We got it taken care of. If it doesn't, bring your own stuff. Like our aid bag system allows for you to have everything you need at every aid station. We have your things there waiting for you. And so don't go off the reservation in terms of using our stuff because it's convenient.
Yep.
Bring your own stuff. Have a plan.
Quick shout out to you guys on that, Mike. So I've been doing a lot of bike races, and I've ran logistics for bike races, and I've raced Breck Epic. I don't think I've seen a better job of the individual race bag hand up scenario. So like a pro racer, they always want like stuff fast, right? You like roll up and here you go. At Breck Epic, you can put whatever you want in your bag. You can put in a flask of whiskey and a jar of pickles if that's what you want up there, okay? Or some Goo Energy gels or whatever.
Sparklers.
Whatever. You put it in, you drop it at the beginning of the stage, and they bring it to whatever aid station you want it to go at. And he gives you instruction, right? They have a spotter for the number. They get it organized. They have it ready, and they have it open so that you can roll up. You still have to stop. Everybody should stop, by the way. Get whatever you need to, take a minute, and then carry on. And then they bring your the aid station bag back to the start. And it's like flawless. Like but it's such a huge help. But also anybody like racing this thing also knows that you have your own specific stuff out there too, and it's very important. So to get long-winded, that goes into the long ride preaching here. And this is the Time Crunched Cyclist podcast. So everybody's like scrapping for 3 hours, 4 hours. Maybe that's like the longest ride you've ever done in your life. Breck Epic, you're going to have to go longer than that. Okay, in training, if you can go longer than 4 hours, that is ideal. Maybe you can't, but in my opinion, you should have a lot of those, and you should practice what Mike is talking about in the way of like getting your food dialed at hour not only 1, 2, but 3 and 4, because stuff changes. And then that's why I'm saying do a training camp of it 3, 4 days deep, because stuff changes again. Now, Freeport, Maine, it's going to get pretty cold there, right, Mike? So what about indoor training? Because there's some options out there, including, by the way, soft plug for TP Virtual. Training Peaks just came out with their own virtual training platform, which I played around with only a little bit and I had a couple athletes on it. I've got to do more on that before I can really talk to it. But the virtual riding platform to get more time in the saddle over the winter for Indira, that's going to be probably the moneymaker when it comes to building fitness over the winter. Would you recommend people doing indoor stuff as well in prep for Breck Epic?
The only bad answer is to not do anything. Tim Fea, Breck local, won a cyclocross national championship, and he hadn't been on his bike until the day of the race. He just he was skinning up the mountain. That was it. Yeah. That was his training. Matt Kelly won a world championship in Pope Rod in late 90s, right? Like 1999. And he was on a trainer in his basement. He hadn't been on a bike in months. And he went out and announced his presence, brought home the first cyclocross gold medal ever. And yeah, do something because spring's coming and you want to at least be in maintenance mode until you get there. Riding a trainer for 4 hours is hard. It's a mind-numbing exercise.
To me, it's hard.
So, yeah, it's just like nutrition. Figure out how you can goose the system, how your body's going to react. Figure out what you need to do on a trainer to maintain base fitness, and then have a plan, for coming out of hibernation. And that's it. You do something. The help that you provide athletes is amazing. The Training Peaks people, we're actually working on something with them right now. And Dirk Friel, who's sort of the founder of Training Peaks, is, he's Grand Exalted Water Buffalo here at the Breck Epic Lodge. He's done the race a bunch of times. He's great. There are plans. There's help. Yeah. This is meant to be a life experience that isn't limited to just the 6 days on course. It's meant to be, call it a year of your life, where you've put a goal in place and you know the importance of setting goals and how those benefits leak out into everything else that you do. Your mental health, your physical health, you're a better person with a carrot in front of you. Yeah. And there's all kinds of people who can contribute to that ecosystem. Your case in point, your business, your reason for existing is helping people achieve these types of goals. So assemble your team, get good advice. It's like parenting. Listen to everybody, use the resources at your disposal, and then make your own choice. Like what works best for you. Ultimately, you are the CEO of You Incorporated.
Even before we were talking here, I'm going to read a Mike Mack quote here, because something to this point: the benefits of health and fitness and pedaling are not measured in podiums for the vast majority of people. And the vast majority of people I coach, the vast majority of people who have done Breck Epic, I would say that is the case. Finishing is great, but that process and that journey, man, that's where the money's at. And it will pay so many dividends on your investments. And that's where I say to Indira, living in Freeport, Maine, whether it's cross-country skiing or indoor riding or hiking or something, like train to train year-round, but then come back to like that May time period. That's when you get more specific and you start really honing the FTP and the VO2 and get on the single track and all this kind of stuff. That's when you get specific. But like Mike said, man, just get really fit and keep going. The worst thing you can do is nothing.
You are the CEO of you. You are the functional expert of you. And we all have resources at our disposal. And something like the Epic, when you arrive on day one, you've already made it. You have worked your ass off just to get here. The race itself, that's the gravy. And like completing it, you gotta be fit. You gotta be mentally tough. You gotta be a little bit lucky. Your equipment needs to hold up. There's a lot of variables like that. That night sky is constantly evolving. But make no mistake, if you've done the work that gives you the courage to show up on the start line, you're hard as nails. You belong here. And excuse my French, let's fucking go. Like, let's ride our bikes together fast and long and with our people. And, let the chips fall. Do your work and see if it worked. And if it didn't, saddle up again, right? Yeah. It's, that is one of the beauties of life. We get a bunch of do-overs for stuff that matters.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Well, Mike, we're getting long here. I think we have answered Indira in very roundabout ways, as is typical with Mike McCormack. But I'll give you the final word here. What else should Indira or any other Epic curious listeners know before they actually sign up for Breck Epic?
Know that we're fans of you, that we respect the commitment and the effort that it takes to get here. The Epic started as a love letter to backcountry mountain biking and through a tighter lens to the trail network of Summit County. We want to show you our favorite rides, and some things are going to go well and some things are not, but we're all going to be in the soup together. And man, we're pulling for you. I cannot wait to meet Indira in August.
It's going to be awesome. And I will say, folks, for those viewing on
You
YouTube,
nerd.
I have this just sitting out all the time, Mike. But for those who are fit enough, resilient enough, lucky enough to complete the Breck Epic, you get one of these giant, egregious, silly belt buckles that will just make your day. Look at that. Look at that
We
right
bought.
there.
I you have to buy 7,000 of these from Alibaba, but I bought them. So they're smaller ones. They're 4 belt buckles, and we had some custom foam made. I'm going to send you one.
You
Um,
should you should definitely do it. But I want to say too, I'll probably get this edited out. But on the back, Mike, on the back of this like shimmer shine thing, it says Breck Epic Mountain Bike Stage Race 2017, bad motherfucker. So that was the trophy that year.
true, true statement.
Was that a custom piece? I just wanted to. Just kidding.
I guess so. Like they all say that on the back of them. It's a joke about Pulp Fiction, which is also a great insight into
Exactly.
that's who you are now. Like when you
Yeah.
do something like this, you are hard as nails, and you should, no matter where the rest of your life goes, you did this, and you take that with you. And those belt buckles are meant to sit on your printer or your desk and remind you your day might not be going great, but you did that, and you can get through anything.
Couldn't agree more. People, that's why we do silly, epic things like what Mike has created up in Summit County. So this has been a huge honor for me to talk to you just on a random Thursday or whatever it is. And I do have plans to come back up to Breck Epic now that I live on the Beast Coast, where everything is slow but lots of oxygen. I'm going to come back up and suffer like a dog up there at some point. But Mike, thank you so much for spending time with myself and our audience today to enlighten them on Breck Epic, but really like life and how to do life better.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been fun to talk.
Yeah, man.